Hello there, and welcome back. If you are here for the first time, this is a place for curious minds to gather, relax, and learn something gentle before sleep. And if you have been here before, welcome home. Tonight, there is nothing you need to fix, nothing to solve, nothing to figure out. Because right now, beneath your thoughts, beneath the noise of the day, a quiet system is already working. One that has been keeping you safe since the very first moment you took a breath. It is called the parasympathetic nervous system, and it does not need your permission to begin. It is already running. You may have heard of it described as the rest and digest system, but that name does not quite capture what it really is. It is more like a quiet operating system, one that runs beneath everything else, slowing your heart when it is time to slow, warming your hands when it is safe to warm them, softening your muscles when there is nothing left to hold. It has been doing this for you since before you were born, and it is doing it right now. So let your shoulders settle, let your jaw soften, and let us simply spend some time learning about the gentle machinery that is, even now, steering you toward rest. If you enjoy this kind of quiet company, a like or subscribe helps other sleepy souls find their way here too, one gentle click at a time. Now then, let us begin. Your body has two modes, and one of them is rest. Deep inside your nervous system, there are two branches that quietly govern everything your body does without you ever needing to think about it. One of them speeds things up. It quickens your heartbeat, sharpens your focus, and prepares you to act. The other does the opposite. It slows things down. It softens. It settles. It tells your body that the work is done, and it is safe to rest. These two branches are part of what scientists call the autonomic nervous system, a network so ancient and so reliable that it has been running in living creatures for hundreds of millions of years. Researchers at the University of Oxford have traced its origins back to some of the earliest vertebrates, suggesting that this dual system of activation and rest was one of the very first things evolution decided was worth keeping. Imagine a house with two settings. One fills the rooms with bright light and opens every window. The other dims the lights, draws the curtains, and lets the warmth settle in. Your body has both of those settings. And right now, as you listen, the second one is beginning to take over. And so, without trying, your body begins its quiet shift from doing to simply being. The calm system is older than language. Long before humans ever spoke a word, long before the first story was told around a fire, the parasympathetic nervous system was already at work. It predates speech, predates thought as we know it, and predates every philosophy ever written about the meaning of peace. Evolutionary biologists estimate that the basic architecture of the autonomic nervous system appeared over 400 million years ago. In the earliest fish-like creatures that swam through ancient oceans, even then, their bodies needed a way to slow down, to recover, to restore what the day had used up. The mechanism that allowed them to do that is, in its essence, the same one that is working inside you right now. A study published in the Journal of Comparative Neurology confirmed that the vagal pathways, the main highways of the parasympathetic system, are remarkably conserved across species, from amphibians to mammals to you, lying here tonight. It is like discovering that the river running beneath your city is not 100 years old, but 100 million. It has been flowing since before anything on this planet had a name. And it flows still, quietly, patiently, carrying you toward rest the same way it carried every ancestor who came before you. Rest is not laziness. It is biology. There is a common misunderstanding that rest is the absence of productivity, that it is what happens when you stop doing useful things. But biology tells a very different story. Rest is not a gap between tasks. It is a task in itself, and one of the most important ones your body performs. When the parasympathetic system activates, it triggers a cascade of processes that are anything but idle. Your digestive enzymes increase. Your immune cells mobilize. Your tissues begin to repair. Your liver processes toxins more efficiently. Your lymphatic system clears waste. All of this happens not because you are doing nothing, but because your body has switched to a different kind of doing. Researchers at Harvard Medical School have shown that parasympathetic activation is associated with increased cellular repair activity, improved protein synthesis, and enhanced immune surveillance. In other words, rest is when your body does its most important maintenance work. Perhaps you might notice your jaw softening just a little, not because you are trying to relax it, but because it is simply ready to let go of whatever it was holding. And in that small release, your body is already doing what it does best, quietly, invisibly, restoring what the day has gently worn away. Your nervous system has a built-in dimmer switch. It is tempting to think of your body as having an on-off switch for calm. Either you are stressed or you are relaxed. But the truth is far more elegant than that. Your autonomic nervous system works more like a dimmer, constantly adjusting the balance between activation and rest, moment by moment, breath by breath. At any given time, both branches are active. The sympathetic system might be turned up a little during a conversation, and the parasympathetic system might be turned up a little more as you settle into bed. The balance shifts fluidly, without conscious effort, responding to signals from your body, your environment, and even the tone of the voice you are listening to. This concept, known as autonomic balance or sympathovagal balance, has been studied extensively at the University of Milan. Researchers there found that the ratio between sympathetic and parasympathetic activity is one of the strongest predictors of overall health, more reliable in some cases than blood pressure or cholesterol. Think of it as a gentle gradient, not a toggle. And right now, as the room settles and the day recedes, the dimmer is slowly, steadily turning toward rest, not with a click, but with a soft, unhurried fade. Your heart listens to your calm system every second. Every time your heart beats, it is receiving instructions, not from your thoughts, not from your will, but from a quiet conversation between your heart and your parasympathetic nervous system. And this conversation never stops. The vagus nerve, the main cable of the parasympathetic system, wraps around your heart like a gentle hand. When it sends a signal, your heart slows. When the signal eases, your heart speeds up again. This back and forth happens with every single beat, creating a natural rhythm of speeding up and slowing down that scientists call heart rate variability. A landmark study published in the journal Circulation found that higher heart rate variability, meaning more parasympathetic influence on the heart, is consistently associated with better cardiovascular health, greater emotional resilience, and longer lifespan. Perhaps you might notice, right now, a gentle awareness of your own heartbeat. Not loud, not urgent, just there, steady and unhurried, like a clock that has decided there is no rush. And with each beat, your heart is not just pumping blood, it is listening to the quiet system that has been keeping it safe since the very first time it ever beat. Digestion only works when you feel safe. Here is something remarkable about your body. It will not waste energy digesting food if it thinks you are in danger. When the sympathetic system is active, when your body senses threat, blood flow is redirected away from your stomach and intestines and toward your muscles. Digestion slows or stops entirely. Your body decides that running is more important than eating. But when the parasympathetic system takes over, the opposite happens. Blood returns to your gut. Digestive enzymes are released. The smooth muscles of your intestines begin their slow, rhythmic contractions, a process called peristalsis, which moves food through your body the way a river carries leaves downstream. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University have documented how the enteric nervous system, sometimes called the second brain, relies almost entirely on parasympathetic input to function properly. Without it, digestion stalls. With it, the body nourishes itself from the inside. It is a quiet reminder that your body makes decisions about safety long before you do. And right now, if your stomach feels calm, if there is a gentle warmth in your belly, that is your parasympathetic system saying it is safe to nourish. It is safe to rest. Your pupils change size depending on which system is in charge. If you could see your own eyes right now, you might notice something subtle. In a state of calm, your pupils constrict slightly, becoming a little smaller. This is not random. It is a direct result of parasympathetic activity. The circular muscle of the iris, called the sphincter pupillae, is controlled by the parasympathetic branch. When it activates, the pupil narrows, letting in less light, softening the world a little. Conversely, when the sympathetic system is dominant, your pupils dilate. The world becomes brighter, sharper, more detailed, because your body wants to take in as much information as possible when it senses threat. Researchers at the University of California, Berkeley have used pupil size as a reliable marker of autonomic state, measuring the balance between activation and rest simply by looking into someone's eyes. Perhaps you might notice your shoulders releasing a little. Perhaps there is a heaviness settling into them that was not there a moment ago, as if they have remembered that they do not need to hold anything up right now. And somewhere behind your closed eyes, your pupils are softening too, letting the world grow dim, letting the quiet in. Relaxation is not the absence of stress. It is its own signal. For a long time, scientists assumed that relaxation was simply what happened when stress went away. Remove the threat, and the body calms down. But research over the last few decades has revealed something more interesting. The parasympathetic system does not just wait for the sympathetic system to stop. It actively sends its own signals. It has its own neurotransmitters, its own pathways, its own agenda. The primary neurotransmitter of the parasympathetic system is acetylcholine, a molecule that actively slows the heart, relaxes smooth muscle, and promotes glandular secretion. It is not the absence of adrenaline. It is the presence of something else entirely. something that says you are safe. You can rest. The work is done. Dr. Herbert Benson at Harvard Medical School coined the term the relaxation response to describe this active process, showing that the body has a dedicated mechanism for generating calm, not just for removing stress. Imagine a river flowing beneath a frozen lake. The ice above may crack and shift with the weather, but the river below moves at its own pace, steady and unhurried, regardless of what happens on the surface. Your parasympathetic system is that river. It does not react to the noise above. It simply flows. Your body has been practicing calm since before you were born. In the womb, long before you ever opened your eyes, your parasympathetic nervous system was already developing. By the second trimester of pregnancy, the vagus nerve is functional, sending signals between the developing brain and the tiny, forming heart. The fetus practices breathing, practices swallowing, practices the rhythmic patterns that will, one day, become the foundation of every calm moment you will ever experience. Researchers at the University of Kansas found that fetal heart rate variability, a marker of parasympathetic function, can be detected as early as 20 weeks of gestation. This means that your body was rehearsing rest before it ever knew what the world outside looked like. It is a humbling thought. The system that calms you tonight, that softens your breath and steadies your heart, is not something you learned. It is not something anyone taught you. It was woven into your biology before you had a name, before you had a voice, before you had a single memory to call your own. And it has been running ever since, faithfully, quietly, without ever once being asked. Saliva production increases when you feel safe. It is one of those small details that most people never notice. But when your parasympathetic system is active, your salivary glands produce more saliva, and the saliva they produce is different. It is thinner, more watery, richer in digestive enzymes. It is your body's way of preparing to nourish itself. When you are stressed, the opposite happens. Your mouth goes dry. Your salivary glands slow down or stop. This is why people often feel a dry mouth before public speaking or during moments of anxiety. The sympathetic system is telling the body that digestion can wait. This phenomenon has been well documented by researchers at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, who used salivary flow rate as a non-invasive marker of autonomic state. They found that salivary changes can reflect shifts in parasympathetic tone within minutes. Perhaps you might notice the soles of your feet right now, just resting, just touching the surface beneath them, not going anywhere, not needing to. And if your mouth feels comfortable, if there is a quiet ease in your jaw and throat, that is your body telling you something very simple. It is safe here. There is nothing to run from. There is only rest. Your voice changes when your calm system is active. When the parasympathetic system is dominant, something subtle happens to the muscles of your larynx, the small structure in your throat that shapes your voice. These muscles relax. Your vocal cords lengthen slightly, and as a result, your voice becomes lower, softer, warmer. This is not a choice. It is a reflex, and it works in reverse too. When you hear a voice that is low and warm and unhurried, your own nervous system responds. It recognizes that tone as a safety signal, a sign that the person speaking is calm, and therefore, that you can be calm too. Stephen Porges, the neuroscientist who developed the polyvagal theory, has written extensively about this phenomenon. He calls it prosody, the musical quality of speech, and considers it one of the most powerful tools the nervous system uses to communicate safety between people. It is why lullabies work. It is why a whispered story feels different from a shouted one. The information may be the same, but the tone tells your body something words cannot. It says, settle. It says, you are safe here. It says, there is nothing to fear in this voice. And so your body listens, not to the words, but to the music beneath them. Tears of relief are a parasympathetic response. Not all tears are the same. There are tears of pain, tears of frustration, tears caused by wind or dust. But there is another kind, one that arrives when something difficult finally passes, when the pressure lifts, when the news is good, when you realize that everything is going to be all right. These tears, sometimes called tears of relief, are a parasympathetic event. They are triggered not by distress, but by the body's shift from sympathetic activation back to parasympathetic rest. The tension that was held in the body has to go somewhere, and tears are one of the ways it leaves. Researchers at Tilburg University in the Netherlands found that crying, particularly the kind that follows emotional resolution, is associated with increased parasympathetic activity and decreased cortisol levels. In other words, those tears are not a sign of weakness. They are a sign that your body is returning to safety. Perhaps you might notice your forehead softening, not furrowed, not concentrating, just smooth and quiet, like a still surface reflecting nothing at all. And if you have ever felt that strange, sudden urge to cry when everything finally felt okay, now you know. That was your body letting go. That was your calm system welcoming you home. The calm system slows everything down on purpose. It can feel frustrating, sometimes, to slow down. We live in a world that celebrates speed, productivity, output, but your parasympathetic system has no interest in any of that. Its job is to decelerate, to bring every process in your body to a gentler, more sustainable pace. When it activates, your heart rate drops, your breathing slows, your blood pressure decreases, your metabolic rate settles into a lower gear, even your brainwaves change, shifting from the fast, sharp patterns of alertness to the slow, rolling waves associated with rest and eventually sleep. Neuroscientists at Stanford University have mapped these changes in real time, showing that parasympathetic activation creates a global shift in the body's operating tempo, not just in one organ, but everywhere at once. The whole system decelerates together, like an orchestra gradually slowing to the final note of a piece. Imagine the root system of a great tree. Above ground, the branches may sway and shift with every gust, but below, the roots hold still, deep, patient, unmoved by the weather above. Your parasympathetic system is that root system. It does not chase the wind. It simply holds you in place, gently, while everything else settles. Your body temperature shifts when you begin to rest. As the parasympathetic system becomes more active, something very gentle happens to your blood vessels. The small vessels in your hands and feet dilate, allowing more warm blood to flow to your extremities. This is called peripheral vasodilation, and it is one of the body's earliest signals that it is preparing for rest. You may have noticed this without knowing what it was. The warmth in your hands just before sleep, the heaviness in your feet, the feeling that your body is sinking gently into the surface beneath you. These are not random sensations. They are the parasympathetic system redistributing your warmth, moving it outward, letting it radiate from your skin like heat from a stone that has been warmed by the sun. Researchers at the University of Basel in Switzerland found that the degree of peripheral warming is one of the best predictors of how quickly a person will fall asleep. The warmer the hands and feet, the faster sleep comes. And so your body is doing what it has always done, preparing the way, warming the edges, making the transition from wakefulness to sleep as gentle and as seamless as the sun sliding below the horizon. Sleep begins with a parasympathetic handshake. The moment you fall asleep is not a sudden event. It is a gradual negotiation between two systems. The sympathetic system, which has been keeping you alert, slowly steps back, and the parasympathetic system, which has been waiting patiently in the background, slowly steps forward. Scientists sometimes describe this transition as a handoff, a gentle exchange of control from one branch to the other. During this transition, your heart rate decreases, your breathing becomes more regular, your muscle tone decreases, your eyes, behind closed lids, begin to slow their movements. All of these changes are mediated by the parasympathetic system, which is, in effect, preparing the stage for sleep. Sleep researchers at the University of Chicago have shown that the strength of this parasympathetic surge at sleep onset is directly correlated with sleep quality. The stronger the handshake, the deeper the sleep that follows. It is as if your body has a doorway between waking and sleeping, and the parasympathetic system is the one who holds it open. Not with force, not with urgency, but with a quiet patience that says whenever you are ready, there is no rush. The door will stay open as long as you need. Your immune system works best when you are calm. Your body's ability to fight infection, to heal wounds, to detect and destroy abnormal cells. All of this depends, to a remarkable degree, on your state of rest. When the parasympathetic system is active, immune function is enhanced. White blood cells circulate more freely. Inflammatory markers decrease. The body shifts from defense mode to maintenance mode. When the sympathetic system is dominant, the opposite occurs. The body prioritizes immediate survival over long-term health. Immune cells are redirected. Inflammation increases. The repair crews are told to stand down until the threat has passed. A comprehensive review, published in the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences, found that chronic sympathetic dominance, the state of being perpetually stressed, is one of the strongest predictors of immune dysfunction, while regular parasympathetic activation supports robust immune health. Perhaps you might notice your hands right now. Perhaps they are resting, palms down, fingers loose. Perhaps they are not holding anything, not gripping, not reaching, just resting. And in that rest, your body is free to do what it does best, quietly, invisibly, keeping you well. Wound healing accelerates during rest. If you have ever noticed that a cut or bruise seems to improve overnight, that is not your imagination. It is your parasympathetic system at work. During rest, blood flow to the skin increases. Growth factors are released. Collagen synthesis accelerates. The body directs its resources toward repair with an efficiency that is simply not possible during states of high alertness. Researchers at the Ohio State University College of Medicine conducted a study in which participants were given small, standardized wounds and then monitored under different conditions. Those who experienced higher levels of stress took significantly longer to heal, sometimes 40% longer, than those who were calm and well rested. It is as if gravity itself is a healer, not the gravity of physics, but the gravity of stillness, the gentle, downward pull that says stop moving, stop doing, let the body close what the day has opened. And so, even now, as you lie here, your body is not idle. It is stitching, it is mending, it is doing the slow, careful work of restoration that can only happen when you allow yourself to be still. Your body stores calm the way it stores energy. Just as your body stores glucose for future use, it also stores a kind of calm. Scientists call it vagal tone, and it refers to the baseline level of parasympathetic activity in your body at rest. People with high vagal tone tend to recover from stress more quickly, sleep more easily, and experience greater emotional stability. Vagal tone is not fixed. It can be strengthened over time through practices that activate the parasympathetic system. Slow breathing, gentle movement, warm social connection, and yes, simply resting. Each time the parasympathetic system is activated, it becomes a little more efficient, a little more responsive, a little more available. A study published in Psychological Science found that people who engaged in daily practices that increased vagal tone reported significant improvements in emotional well-being, social connection, and physical health over a period of just a few weeks. It is a comforting thought that the calm you experience tonight is not lost when you wake. It is stored, deposited, like a small coin in a vast and quiet bank. And over time, those coins accumulate until one day, calm is not something you have to reach for. It is simply where you live. The parasympathetic system protects your brain. Your brain is the most metabolically expensive organ in your body. It uses roughly 20% of your total energy, while making up only about 2% of your body weight. And like any complex machine, it needs regular maintenance. That maintenance happens primarily during parasympathetic dominant states. During rest, the brain activates a waste clearance system called the glymphatic system, which flushes out metabolic byproducts, including proteins associated with neurodegenerative conditions. This process is most active during deep sleep, when parasympathetic tone is at its highest. Researchers at the University of Rochester Medical Center were the first to describe this system in detail, showing that the brain's interstitial spaces expand during sleep, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to flow more freely and carry away waste products that accumulate during waking hours. It is as if your brain has its own cleaning crew, and that crew only works the night shift. They arrive when the lights go down and the noise stops, and they work best when the building is empty. When the parasympathetic system has told every other system to stand down, go home, and rest, your gut has its own nervous system, and it prefers calm. Deep in the walls of your digestive tract, there is a network of over 100 million neurons. It is called the enteric nervous system, and it is so complex that scientists sometimes refer to it as the second brain. It can operate independently of the central nervous system. managing the rhythmic contractions that move food through your body, the release of digestive enzymes, and the absorption of nutrients. But here is the key. While the enteric nervous system can function on its own, it works best when it receives support from the parasympathetic system, specifically through the vagus nerve. When vagal input is strong, digestion is smooth, efficient, and comfortable. When vagal input is weak, or when the sympathetic system is dominant, digestion slows, cramps, or stops altogether. Researchers at the Flinders University in Australia have mapped the intricate communication between the vagus nerve and the enteric nervous system, describing it as one of the most important regulatory relationships in the human body. Imagine a thermostat in a quiet house. It does not need you to adjust it. It senses the temperature and responds on its own. But it works best when the house is peaceful. When the doors are closed and the windows are still. Perhaps you might notice your stomach right now. Perhaps there is a gentle warmth there. Perhaps it is simply quiet. And in that quiet, your second brain is doing what it does best, nourishing you from the inside, without a single conscious thought. Memories consolidate better in parasympathetic state. When you learn something new, the memory of it is fragile. It exists as a temporary pattern of neural activity, easily disrupted, easily forgotten. For that memory to become permanent, it needs to be consolidated, a process in which the brain transfers information from short-term storage to long-term storage. This consolidation happens most effectively during sleep, and particularly during the slow-wave sleep stages, when parasympathetic activity is at its peak. The hippocampus, the brain's memory center, replays the day's experiences in compressed form, while the neocortex integrates them into existing knowledge networks. Researchers at the University of Lübeck in Germany demonstrated that participants who slept after learning new information retained significantly more than those who stayed awake, and that the quality of retention was directly linked to the depth of parasympathetic dominant sleep. So the facts you are hearing tonight, the ones that stay with you and the ones that drift away, they are being sorted right now. Not by effort, not by concentration, but by the gentle, unconscious work of a system that knows exactly what to keep and what to let go. Your facial muscles soften when you feel safe. There are over 40 muscles in the human face, and many of them are exquisitely sensitive to your autonomic state. When the sympathetic system is active, these muscles tighten, the brow furrows, the jaw clenches, the muscles around the eyes narrow, scanning for threat. But when the parasympathetic system takes over, these muscles release. The forehead smooths, the jaw drops slightly open, the muscles around the eyes soften, and the eyelids grow heavy. Even the tiny muscles around the ears shift, tuning them toward lower frequency sounds, the kind associated with safety and comfort. Stephen Porges has described this as the social engagement system, a set of cranial nerves that connect the parasympathetic system directly to the muscles of the face and head. When this system is active, your face communicates safety to others, and your body communicates safety to itself. Perhaps you might notice your jaw right now. Perhaps it has already begun to soften. Perhaps there is a small space between your teeth that was not there before. Perhaps your lips are barely touching. Or perhaps they have parted just slightly, making room for each slow breath to pass. And in that softening, something quiet is being said. not with words, but with the oldest language your body knows. The parasympathetic system is always on. Even now, there is a common misconception that the parasympathetic system only activates when you relax. But in truth, it is always active, to some degree, every moment of every day, even during intense physical exertion, even during moments of high stress. There is a baseline level of parasympathetic tone that keeps your heart from beating too fast, your blood vessels from constricting too tightly, your organs from overworking. This tonic, or resting, parasympathetic activity is what gives your autonomic system its flexibility. It is the counterweight that prevents the sympathetic system from running unchecked. Without it, the body would have no brakes. Researchers at Imperial College London have shown that even small reductions in tonic vagal tone can lead to significant increases in cardiovascular risk, while maintaining or improving it is one of the most protective things the body can do for long-term health. Imagine a night gardener who tends to a garden while the household sleeps. You never see the work being done. You only notice, in the morning, that the flowers are a little brighter, the paths a little cleaner, the hedges a little neater. Your parasympathetic system is that gardener. It does not wait to be noticed. It simply works. Your body does not need instructions to heal. You do not need to tell your white blood cells where to go. You do not need to direct the platelets to a wound or remind your liver to filter your blood. These processes happen automatically, governed by systems that are older than thought, older than choice, older than the idea of free will itself. The parasympathetic system is the conductor of this silent orchestra. When it is active, the body's repair mechanisms work at peak efficiency. Cells divide, tissues regenerate, bones mend, and all of this happens while you do nothing at all except be still. The concept of autopoiesis, the self-creating and self-maintaining nature of living systems, was described by biologists Humberto Maturana and Francisco Varela, who argued that life is, at its core, a process of continuous self-repair. Your parasympathetic system is the environment that makes that repair possible. And so, if you have been carrying the belief that you need to do something to feel better, perhaps tonight you can let that belief rest too. Your body already knows what to do. It has always known, and it is doing it right now. In the silence between these words, the calm system is not something you activate. It is something you allow. And this, perhaps, is the most important thing to understand about the parasympathetic nervous system. You cannot force it. You cannot will yourself into calm. In fact, the very act of trying to relax often activates the sympathetic system, because effort, by its nature, is arousing. Instead, the parasympathetic system responds to permission, to safety, to the absence of demand. It activates not when you try harder, but when you stop trying altogether. When the environment says there is nothing to do, when the body says, I am safe, when the mind says I can let go. Dr. Peter Levine, a pioneer in somatic experiencing, has described this as the difference between doing and allowing. The parasympathetic system, he writes, is not activated by effort, but by surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of trust. Imagine a tide retreating from the shore. It does not pull the water back with force. It simply creates the conditions for the water to return to where it belongs. Your parasympathetic system works the same way. It does not drag you toward rest. It simply opens the door and waits. And perhaps, right now, that door is already open. Perhaps your body has already begun to walk through it. Not because you tried, but because you allowed. And that is enough. That has always been enough. There is a nerve that connects your brain to nearly every organ in your body. It begins at the base of your skull, just behind your ear, and from there it travels downward. It branches through your throat, wraps around your heart, passes through your lungs, threads through your diaphragm, and reaches deep into your abdomen, touching your stomach, your intestines, your liver, your kidneys. It is the longest cranial nerve in the human body, and it carries more information than almost any other nerve you possess. It is called the vagus nerve. The word vagus comes from the Latin word for wanderer, because that is exactly what it does. It wanders. It meanders through your body like a river through a valley, touching everything it passes, quietly influencing every organ it meets. Anatomists at the University of Erlangen-Nuremberg in Germany have mapped its pathways in extraordinary detail, revealing a network so extensive that it connects the brain to the body in ways that no other single nerve can match. Imagine a thread of silver running from the crown of your head to the depths of your belly. Not pulling, not tugging, just connecting, linking every part of you to every other part. That is the vagus nerve. And tonight, it is the thread that carries you toward rest. 80% of the vagus nerve carries information upward, from body to brain. Most people assume that nerves are one-way streets, carrying commands from the brain to the body. But the vagus nerve is different. Roughly 80% of its fibers are afferent, meaning they carry information from the body up to the brain. Your gut, your heart, your lungs, your liver. They are all constantly sending signals to the brain through the vagus nerve, telling it what is happening below. This means that your brain is, in many ways, listening to your body more than it is talking to it. The brain receives reports about your digestion, your heart rate, your breathing rhythm, and your immune status. And it uses this information to decide how to respond. Researchers at the University of Zurich have described this as interoception, the brain's ability to sense the internal state of the body. And the vagus nerve is the primary highway for this internal sensing. Perhaps you might notice the weight of your body right now, not as something heavy, but as something present. The way a stone rests at the bottom of a clear pool, not sinking, already settled, already where it belongs. And all of this information, every signal from every organ, is traveling upward through the vagus nerve right now, telling your brain, quietly, that all is well. The vagus nerve is why deep breathing works. You have probably heard that taking a deep breath can calm you down, but you may not know why. The answer lies in the anatomy of the vagus nerve. As it passes through the chest, the vagus nerve runs close to the diaphragm, the large dome-shaped muscle that controls breathing. When you take a slow, deep breath, the diaphragm descends, and as it does, it physically stimulates the vagus nerve. This stimulation triggers a cascade of parasympathetic responses. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, your muscles relax, and your brain receives a signal that says the body is breathing slowly. Therefore, the body must be safe. Researchers at the Medical University of Graz in Austria measured this effect directly, showing that slow, diaphragmatic breathing at a rate of about 6 breaths per minute produces the strongest vagal response and the most pronounced shift toward parasympathetic dominance. It is as if your breath is a key and the vagus nerve is the lock. You do not need to force the door open. You simply turn the key, slowly and gently, and the door opens on its own. And right now, your breath is already turning, slowly, gently, without any effort at all. The vagus nerve has 2 branches, and one of them is uniquely human. For most of vertebrate history, the vagus nerve had one main branch, an ancient pathway that controlled basic functions like heart rate and digestion. But somewhere in the evolution of mammals, and especially in primates and humans, a second branch emerged. This newer branch, called the ventral vagal complex, connects not just to the heart and gut, but to the muscles of the face, the throat, and the middle ear. This is the branch that Stephen Porges identified in his polyvagal theory. He proposed that this newer vagal pathway is responsible for what he calls the social engagement system, the ability to feel safe in the presence of others, to read faces, to respond to the tone of a voice, to feel connected. Researchers at the University of North Carolina have shown that activation of this ventral vagal pathway is associated with feelings of safety, warmth, and social connection, and that it functions as a kind of biological bridge between calm and companionship. Imagine 2 rivers flowing from the same mountain. One is ancient, deep, and slow, running underground where no one can see it. The other is newer, flowing through open meadows, catching the light. Both carry the same water, but the newer one touches more of the world. Your ventral vagus is that newer river. It carries calm not just through your organs, but through your voice, your face, your connection to others. Your vagus nerve responds to the sound of a calm voice. The ventral vagal pathway is directly connected to the muscles of the middle ear, specifically a tiny muscle called the stapedius. When this pathway is active, the stapedius contracts slightly, tuning the ear to favor human vocal frequencies, particularly the lower, warmer tones associated with calm speech. This means that when you hear a voice that is slow, low, and unhurried, your vagus nerve responds before your conscious mind does. It recognizes the tone as a safety signal and begins to shift the body toward rest. Your heart rate slows, your breathing deepens, your muscles soften, all because of a sound. Researchers at the Brain Body Center at the University of Illinois at Chicago have demonstrated this phenomenon in both children and adults, showing that exposure to calm, prosodic speech patterns reliably increases vagal tone and decreases physiological markers of stress. Perhaps you might notice the space behind your ears right now, that soft, quiet area where the skull meets the neck. Perhaps there is a warmth there, a looseness, as if something small and tight has finally let go. And the voice you are hearing now is part of that letting go, not because of what it says, but because of how it sounds. The vagus nerve helps regulate inflammation throughout the body. In 2000, a neurosurgeon named Kevin Tracy made a discovery that would change the way scientists think about the immune system. He found that the vagus nerve can directly inhibit the production of inflammatory molecules called cytokines. He called this the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway, and it revealed that the nervous system and the immune system are far more connected than anyone had previously believed. When the vagus nerve is active, it sends signals to immune cells in the spleen and other organs, telling them to reduce the production of inflammatory chemicals. This means that parasympathetic activation is not just calming, it is actively anti-inflammatory. Subsequent studies at the Feinstein Institutes for Medical Research have explored using vagal nerve stimulation as a treatment for conditions like rheumatoid arthritis and inflammatory bowel disease, with promising early results. It is as if your vagus nerve is a quiet peacekeeper, moving through the body, whispering to each organ, "There is no threat here. Stand down. Let the healing begin." And the organs listen, not because they are forced to, but because they trust the messenger. Humming stimulates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve passes directly through the throat, close to the vocal cords. When you hum, the vibrations created by the vocal cords travel through the surrounding tissue and gently stimulate the vagus nerve. This is one of the simplest and most ancient ways to activate the parasympathetic system. Researchers at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden found that humming at a low frequency for just a few minutes produces measurable increases in heart rate variability, a direct marker of vagal activation. The effect is gentle but reliable, and it explains why practices like chanting and toning have been used across cultures for thousands of years as tools for inducing calm. Imagine a tuning fork placed against a wooden table. The vibration travels through the surface, spreading further than the fork itself could ever reach. Your voice works the same way. The sound may seem small, a quiet hum, barely audible, but the vibration it creates travels deep into the body, reaching places that no hand could ever touch. The vagus nerve connects your gut feelings to your actual brain. When people say they have a gut feeling about something, they are not speaking entirely in metaphor. The vagus nerve is the physical connection between the enteric nervous system in the gut and the emotional processing centers of the brain, including the amygdala and the insula. Signals from the gut travel upward through the vagus nerve and are interpreted by the brain as emotional information. This is why anxiety often shows up in the stomach first, and why a calm, settled gut often correlates with a calm, settled mind. The gut and the brain are in constant conversation, and the vagus nerve is the line between them. Researchers at University College Cork in Ireland have shown that certain gut bacteria can influence mood and anxiety levels specifically through vagal signaling. When the vagus nerve was severed in animal studies, these mood effects disappeared, confirming that the nerve is the essential conduit. Perhaps you might notice your breathing now, not changing it, just noticing it, the way it rises and falls on its own, like a small boat rocking gently on a still lake. No wind, no waves, just the quiet rhythm of something that has always known how to carry you. Cold water on the face activates the vagus nerve instantly. There is a reflex so ancient that it is shared by nearly all air-breathing vertebrates. It is called the dive reflex, and it is triggered when cold water touches the face, particularly around the forehead, eyes, and cheeks. The moment this happens, the vagus nerve fires a powerful signal. Heart rate drops, blood vessels constrict in the extremities, Blood is redirected to the core. The body shifts immediately into conservation mode. This reflex evolved in diving mammals like seals and whales, who needed to slow their metabolism when submerging. But it exists in humans too, and it can be activated simply by splashing cold water on the face or placing a cool cloth across the forehead. Researchers at the University of Kiel in Germany have measured the dive reflex in controlled conditions, showing that even mild facial cooling produces significant increases in vagal tone within seconds, making it one of the fastest known methods of parasympathetic activation. It is a reminder of how deeply your body is connected to the natural world, that even now, millions of years after your ancestors left the ocean, your nervous system still remembers the water, still responds to its touch, still knows that cold on the face means slow down, dive deep, be still. The vagus nerve influences how you experience time. When the parasympathetic system is dominant, something interesting happens to the perception of time. It seems to slow down. Moments feel longer, more spacious, more unhurried. This is not an illusion. It is a neurological shift. When the body is in a state of sympathetic arousal, the brain processes information more quickly, scanning for threats, making rapid assessments. Time feels compressed. But when vagal tone increases and the parasympathetic system takes over, the brain's processing speed changes. Attention broadens, the urgency fades, and time, subjectively, begins to stretch. Researchers at the University of Waterloo in Canada have linked higher vagal tone with greater present moment awareness and a subjective experience of time as slower and more expansive. It is as if your vagus nerve has the power to change the clock, not the one on the wall, but the one inside your mind. And right now, in this moment, that clock is running slowly. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing that cannot wait. The night is long, the facts are gentle, and time, for now, is yours. Laughter activates the vagus nerve. When you laugh, truly laugh, a cascade of physiological changes occurs. Your diaphragm contracts rhythmically. Your abdominal muscles engage. Your breath comes in short, involuntary bursts. And through all of this, the vagus nerve is being stimulated, repeatedly and intensely. After the laughter subsides, the body enters a rebound state of deep parasympathetic activation. Heart rate drops below baseline. Breathing slows. Muscles relax more deeply than they were before the laughter began. This is why a good laugh often leaves you feeling pleasantly exhausted, loose, and calm. Researchers at Loma Linda University in California found that laughter produced significant increases in heart rate variability and decreases in cortisol, epinephrine, and other stress hormones. They described laughter as a form of internal jogging, a brief burst of activation followed by a prolonged period of deep rest. Perhaps you might notice the space in your chest right now. Not tight, not guarded, just open, as if there is room in there for something soft, something quiet, something that does not need to be named. The vagus nerve is why you sigh. A sigh is not just an emotional expression. It is a physiological reset. Throughout the day, some of the tiny air sacs in your lungs, called alveoli, gradually collapse. This is normal. But if too many collapse, gas exchange becomes less efficient. So your brain, through the vagus nerve triggers an involuntary deep breath, a sigh, that reinflates them. Researchers at Stanford University and the University of California, Los Angeles, identified the neural circuit responsible for sighing, showing that it is controlled by a small cluster of neurons in the brainstem that are directly connected to the vagus nerve. They found that humans sigh approximately 12 times per hour, and that each sigh serves as a kind of respiratory reset button. But sighing also has a calming function. The deep inhalation followed by a long, slow exhalation activates the vagus nerve and shifts the body toward parasympathetic dominance. This is why a sigh of relief feels so good. It is not just emotional release. It is the vagus nerve pressing the reset button. Imagine a snow globe that has been shaken. The sigh is the moment you set it down, the moment everything inside begins to settle. Slowly, gently, finding its way back to stillness. Gentle touch activates the vagus nerve through special nerve fibers. In your skin, there is a class of nerve fibers called C-tactile afferents. Unlike the fast nerve fibers that detect pressure and pain, these fibers are slow. They respond specifically to gentle, stroking touch, the kind of touch that moves across the skin at a speed of about 1 to 10 centimeters per second. When these fibers are activated, they send signals through the spinal cord and up to the brain, where they are processed not as sensation but as emotion. The brain interprets this gentle touch as a signal of safety and affiliation, and through its connections with the vagus nerve, this signal triggers parasympathetic activation. Researchers at Liverpool John Moores University in England have shown that activation of C-tactile afferents produces measurable increases in vagal tone, decreases in cortisol, and subjective feelings of warmth and comfort. Perhaps you might notice the surface beneath your body right now, the fabric against your skin, the subtle pressure where your body meets the bed. Not a sensation you chose to notice, just one that was there all along, waiting for you to arrive. And in that gentle contact, your skin is speaking to your brain, saying, "I am held, I am safe, I am resting." The vagus nerve helps your body know the difference between food and danger. Deep in the walls of your digestive tract, the vagus nerve has specialized receptors that detect the chemical composition of what you have eaten. These receptors can distinguish between nutrients, toxins, and pathogens, and they relay this information to the brain faster than the bloodstream can. This means that your body often knows whether food is safe before you consciously feel any effect. If something harmful is detected, the vagus nerve can trigger nausea, slow gastric emptying, or even initiate vomiting, all within minutes. If the food is safe and nutritious, the vagus nerve promotes continued digestion, signals satiety, and triggers the release of reward chemicals in the brain. Researchers at Duke University have mapped these vagal gut sensors in extraordinary detail, identifying distinct populations of vagal neurons that respond to different types of nutrients, including sugars, fats, and amino acids. It is a remarkable system, a quiet guardian at the gate of your body, tasting the world before you even know what you have consumed, working silently, protecting you from the inside, and asking nothing in return except the peace to do its work. Vagal tone is higher when you feel socially connected. Human beings are not designed to be calm alone. The parasympathetic system, particularly the ventral vagal branch, is deeply intertwined with social behavior. When you feel connected to others, when you feel seen and understood and safe in the presence of another person, your vagal tone increases, your heart rate variability improves, your body shifts toward rest. This is not a metaphor. It is measurable biology. Researchers at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill conducted a study in which participants were trained in loving-kindness meditation, a practice that involves generating feelings of warmth and connection toward others. Over several weeks, their vagal tone increased significantly, and with it, their emotional well-being, social connection, and physical health. Lead researcher Barbara Fredrickson described this as an upward spiral in which positive social emotions increase vagal tone, which in turn makes it easier to experience positive social emotions, which further increases vagal tone. Perhaps you might notice your hands again. Perhaps they are still resting. Perhaps they are warm. And perhaps, in the quiet of this moment, you can feel that you are not alone, that there is a voice here, keeping you company, and that the company itself is part of the calm. The vagus nerve can be strengthened like a muscle. Vagal tone, the baseline level of vagus nerve activity, is not a fixed trait. It can be improved over time with consistent practice. This is one of the most hopeful findings in modern neuroscience. It means that the ability to calm yourself, to recover from stress, to access rest, is a skill that can be developed. Practices that strengthen vagal tone include slow breathing exercises, meditation, cold exposure, singing, humming, social bonding, and physical exercise, particularly aerobic exercise. Each of these activities stimulates the vagus nerve, and over time, repeated stimulation leads to a higher resting vagal tone. A meta-analysis published in the journal Psychophysiology reviewed dozens of studies and concluded that vagal tone is responsive to behavioral interventions, with some of the strongest effects seen in mindfulness-based practices and slow-paced breathing. It is as if your vagus nerve is a path through a forest. The more often it is walked, the wider and clearer it becomes. And right now, simply by lying here, simply by breathing, simply by listening, you are walking that path, not with effort, but with presence. And each step makes the next one a little easier. Your vagus nerve responds to the rhythm of your breath, not just its depth. Many people focus on taking deep breaths when they want to relax, but research has shown that the rhythm of breathing may be even more important than its depth. Specifically, a breathing pattern in which the exhalation is longer than the inhalation produces the strongest vagal response. This is because the vagus nerve is more active during exhalation. When you breathe out, the vagus nerve sends a signal to the heart that slows it down. When you breathe in, that signal weakens and the heart speeds up slightly. By extending the exhalation, you are effectively extending the period during which the vagus nerve is most active. Researchers at the Catholic University of Leuven in Belgium found that a breathing pattern of 4 seconds in and 6 seconds out reliably shifted participants toward parasympathetic dominance within just a few minutes. Imagine ocean waves arriving at shore. The wave rolls in quickly, then retreats slowly, dragging pebbles and foam back with it. Your breath can follow the same pattern. A gentle rise, a longer, slower fall, and with each falling breath, the vagus nerve hums a little deeper, pulling you, gently, toward the shore of sleep. The vagus nerve remembers trauma, and it can learn to let it go. When the body experiences overwhelming stress or trauma, the vagus nerve can become dysregulated. It may become either chronically underactive, leaving the body stuck in a state of high alert, or it may trigger a freeze response, shutting the body down into a state of numbness and disconnection. This understanding, central to the polyvagal theory, has transformed the way clinicians approach trauma recovery. Rather than trying to change thoughts or behaviors first, therapies like somatic experiencing and safe and sound protocol focus on restoring vagal function, helping the nervous system learn or relearn how to shift between states of activation and rest. Researchers at the Trauma Center at the Justice Resource Institute in Boston have shown that body-based interventions that target the vagus nerve can produce significant improvements in trauma symptoms, even in cases where traditional talk therapy has been insufficient. Perhaps you might notice the back of your neck right now. Perhaps there is a softness there, a willingness to let the head be heavy, not collapsing, just surrendering the weight to the pillow beneath it. And in that small surrender, something ancient is being told it is over. The danger has passed. You are here now, and here is safe. The vagus nerve slows your heart more during sleep than at any other time. During deep sleep, particularly during the slow wave stages, vagal activity reaches its highest levels of the day. The heart rate drops to its lowest point. Breathing becomes slow and rhythmic. Blood pressure falls. The body enters its most profound state of rest and repair. This nocturnal vagal surge is essential for cardiovascular health. Sleep researchers at the University of Pennsylvania have shown that the degree of vagal activation during sleep is one of the strongest predictors of long-term heart health. People whose vagal tone drops significantly during sleep, a condition sometimes called autonomic dysfunction, are at substantially higher risk of cardiovascular events. It is a testament to the vagus nerve's quiet importance. While you sleep, while your conscious mind is elsewhere, this nerve is doing its most critical work, holding the heart in a gentle rhythm, keeping the blood pressure low, making sure that the body's most vital organ is cared for during its most vulnerable hours. Like a lighthouse keeper who tends the light through the longest nights, you do not see the work, you do not hear it, but without it, ships would be lost, and so the keeper stays, patient, faithful, through every hour of darkness. The vagus nerve connects to your tear glands, the lacrimal glands, which produce tears, are innervated by the parasympathetic branch of the facial nerve, which works in close concert with the vagus nerve. When the parasympathetic system is active, these glands are more responsive. This is part of why tears come more easily in states of relief, tenderness, or deep relaxation. It also explains why chronic stress can lead to dry eyes. When the sympathetic system is dominant for extended periods, the parasympathetic supply to the tear glands is reduced, and tear production decreases. The eyes become dry, irritated, and fatigued. Researchers at the Shepherd's Eye Research Institute in Boston have documented this connection, showing that parasympathetic activation is essential for maintaining healthy tear film and ocular surface comfort. And so, if your eyes feel soft right now, if the lids are growing heavy and there is no sting, no dryness, no tension around the orbits, that is your parasympathetic system at work, moistening, soothing, preparing the eyes for the dark, quiet rest that is already on its way. The vagus nerve helps regulate your blood sugar. When the parasympathetic system is active, the vagus nerve sends signals to the pancreas, stimulating the release of insulin. Insulin allows your cells to absorb glucose from the bloodstream, providing them with energy and keeping blood sugar levels stable. When the sympathetic system is dominant, the opposite happens. The body releases glucagon and cortisol, which raise blood sugar levels, preparing the body for action. This is useful in short bursts, but when sympathetic dominance becomes chronic, the constant elevation of blood sugar can lead to insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction. Researchers at the Joslin Diabetes Center at Harvard Medical School have studied the vagal regulation of insulin in detail, showing that maintaining healthy vagal tone is one of the body's primary mechanisms for metabolic balance. Perhaps you might notice the backs of your knees right now. That small, soft area where the leg bends. Perhaps there is a looseness there, a sense that the muscles have let go of whatever they were holding. Not tension, just memory. And now, even that is fading. Meditation increases vagal tone within weeks. Of all the practices that have been studied for their effects on the vagus nerve, meditation is among the most thoroughly researched. Mindfulness meditation, loving-kindness meditation, and body scan meditation have all been shown to increase vagal tone, improve heart rate variability, and promote parasympathetic dominance. A landmark study at the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences in Leipzig found that participants who practiced compassion-based meditation for just 6 weeks showed significant increases in vagal tone, along with improvements in emotional regulation and stress resilience. The researchers suggested that the social and emotional focus of the practice may be particularly effective because it activates the ventral vagal pathway, the branch most closely associated with feelings of safety and connection. It is a gentle finding that the way to strengthen your calm system is not through effort or discipline, but through kindness, through turning attention inward with warmth rather than judgment, through treating yourself the way you would treat someone you love. And tonight, you are already doing something like that, simply by being here, simply by listening, simply by allowing the night to hold you. The vagus nerve is involved in the feeling of awe. When you stand at the edge of a canyon, or look up at a sky full of stars, or hear a piece of music that makes you feel small in the best possible way, something happens in your body. Your breath catches. Your skin tingles. A shiver runs down your spine, and your vagus nerve fires. Researchers at the University of California, Berkeley have studied the physiology of awe and found that it is associated with increased vagal activation, reduced inflammatory markers, and a subjective sense of time slowing down. They suggest that awe may have evolved as a way of shifting the body from self-focused, sympathetic states to more expansive, parasympathetic ones. Dacher Keltner, the psychologist who led much of this research, describes awe as the feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends your current understanding. And when the body feels that vastness, the vagus nerve responds. It opens something. It softens something. It makes room for something larger than the self. And perhaps, in the quiet of this moment, there is a kind of awe available to you. Not the dramatic kind, but the gentle kind. The awe of knowing that your body has been keeping itself alive, in silence, for every moment of your life, and that it is doing it still, right now. without being asked. The vagus nerve never stops working. Even in the deepest sleep, even under anesthesia, even in coma, the vagus nerve continues to send signals. It adjusts the heart rate, beat by beat. It monitors the gut for disturbances. It communicates with the immune system. It never takes a break. This continuous, tonic activity is what makes the vagus nerve so essential to survival. It is not a system that waits for emergencies. It is a system that maintains the baseline of life itself, the steady, quiet background rhythm that everything else is built upon. Neurophysiologists at University College London have measured vagal activity across every state of consciousness, from waking to sleeping to sedation, and found that it persists through all of them. The amplitude may change, the frequency may shift, but the signal itself never stops. Imagine a heartbeat in the dark, not yours. Something older, something that has been beating since the first creature drew its first breath. That rhythm is still going, through every era, every extinction, every new beginning. And it is going now, inside you, carried by a nerve that does not know how to rest, because its job is to make sure you can. The vagus nerve is your body's most faithful companion. And so we come to the last fact in this second cluster, and perhaps the simplest one of all. The vagus nerve has been with you since before you were born. It was there for your first heartbeat, your first breath, your first cry. It was there for every fever that broke, every wound that healed, every night you fell asleep without knowing how. It does not judge. It does not demand. It does not keep score. It simply works, day after day, night after night, adjusting, responding, balancing, restoring. It is the most selfless part of you, the part that asks for nothing and gives everything. And tonight, it is here again, doing what it has always done, slowing your heart, softening your breath, warming your hands, telling every part of your body, in a language older than words, you are safe, you are whole, you are home. Perhaps you might let your whole body feel that now, not as an instruction, but as a recognition that you have never been without this companion, that it has never left your side, and that it never will. Let that be enough. For now, let it be more than enough. Your body decides you are safe before your mind does. Safety is not a thought. It is a sensation. Long before you consciously decide that a situation is harmless, your nervous system has already made its own assessment. It has scanned the environment, evaluated the sounds, the temperature, the quality of the light, the presence or absence of other people, and it has arrived at a verdict: safe or not safe. Stephen Porges calls this process neuroception, the nervous system's unconscious detection of safety or danger. It happens below the level of awareness, in brain structures like the amygdala and the brainstem, and it directly controls whether the body shifts toward parasympathetic rest or sympathetic arousal. Researchers at the University of Amsterdam have shown that neuroception can override conscious assessment. You can know, intellectually, that you are safe and still feel anxious, because the nervous system has detected something beneath your awareness that suggests otherwise. And conversely, you can feel calm in a situation you have not yet had time to evaluate, because the nervous system recognized safety before you did. It is a humbling insight. that the oldest, the deepest part of you is not waiting for your thoughts. It is already at work, already scanning, already deciding. And right now, it has decided something very simple. You are safe. You can rest. Warmth is a safety signal. When your body encounters warmth, from a blanket, from another person, from a warm drink held between your hands, the nervous system reads it as a sign of safety. Core body temperature rises slightly. Peripheral blood vessels dilate, and the parasympathetic system strengthens its hold. This response has deep evolutionary roots. In the natural world, warmth is associated with shelter, with proximity to others, with the absence of threat. Cold, by contrast, signals exposure, isolation, vulnerability. Your nervous system learned this association long before you were born, and it still responds to warmth the same way it has for millions of years. Researchers at Yale University found that simply holding a warm cup increased participants' feelings of interpersonal warmth and trust, a phenomenon they attributed to the overlap between physical and social thermoregulation in the brain. Perhaps you might notice the warmth around your body right now. The blanket, if there is one, the air in the room, the warmth radiating from your own skin. All of it is being registered by your nervous system. All of it is being translated into a single, quiet message. This place is safe. This place is warm. You can stay. Dim light tells your nervous system to rest. Your eyes are not just tools for seeing. They are portals through which your nervous system reads the environment. And one of the most powerful environmental signals is light. Bright, blue-enriched light. The kind produced by screens and overhead fluorescent fixtures activates a class of photoreceptors in the retina called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These cells send signals directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master clock, telling it that it is daytime and the body should be alert. But when the light dims, these signals fade. The suprachiasmatic nucleus begins to release melatonin. The sympathetic system eases. The parasympathetic system rises. The body begins its transition toward sleep. Researchers at Harvard Medical School have shown that even modest reductions in evening light exposure produce significant shifts in autonomic balance, increasing parasympathetic tone and decreasing sympathetic arousal. It is as if the light itself is a language, and the dimness of this moment, the softness of this hour, is speaking directly to your biology, not through your thoughts, not through your decisions, but through the quiet machinery of cells that have been reading the light since long before you ever opened your eyes. Repetitive sounds signal safety to the nervous system. The human brain is wired to detect novelty. Any sudden, unexpected sound triggers the sympathetic system, sharpening attention and preparing the body to respond. But repetitive, predictable sounds have the opposite effect. They signal to the nervous system that nothing is changing, that nothing requires attention, and that it is safe to let go. This is why the sound of rain on a roof, waves on a shore, or a train on distant tracks can be so deeply soothing. It is not the content of the sound that matters. It is the pattern, the predictability, the gentle reassurance that the next moment will be very much like the last. Researchers at the Brighton and Sussex Medical School in England used functional brain imaging to study responses to natural repetitive sounds and found that they promoted default mode network activity. The the brain state associated with rest, daydreaming, and inward reflection, while reducing sympathetic activation. Perhaps you might notice the rhythm of these words right now, not what they say, but how they arrive, one after another, steady, predictable, like footsteps on a familiar path. And in that rhythm, your nervous system is finding something it has been looking for all day, a pattern it can trust, a sound it does not need to examine, permission to stop listening and simply drift. Your body can detect safety through smell. The olfactory system, your sense of smell, is one of the oldest sensory systems in the brain. It bypasses many of the higher processing centers that other senses must travel through, sending information almost directly to the limbic system, the emotional core of the brain, and from there to the autonomic nervous system. Certain scents, lavender, chamomile, sandalwood, the smell of a familiar person, activate parasympathetic pathways and reduce sympathetic arousal. This is not cultural conditioning. It is neurochemistry. These scents interact with receptors that modulate gamma-aminobutyric acid activity, the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, effectively telling the brain to slow down. Researchers at Kagoshima University in Japan found that inhaling lavender essential oil produced significant increases in parasympathetic activity and decreases in cortisol, with effects detectable within minutes. And so, even the air you breathe tonight carries information. The smell of your pillow, the scent of your room, the faint, familiar fragrance of a space that your body recognizes as home. All of it is being read. All of it is being translated. And all of it is saying the same thing. You are where you belong. Gravity itself is a safety signal. When your body lies down, something fundamental changes in the way it relates to the world. The vestibular system, the set of organs in your inner ear that detect balance and orientation, sends a clear signal to the brain the body is horizontal. It is no longer standing, walking, or preparing to move. It is at rest. This positional information triggers a cascade of parasympathetic responses. Heart rate decreases. Blood pressure drops. Muscle tone reduces. The body redistributes blood from the legs toward the core and head. All of these changes are mediated by the autonomic nervous system, which uses gravitational cues to determine what state the body should be in. Researchers at the University of Texas have studied the cardiovascular effects of body position in detail, showing that the transition from upright to supine produces rapid and reliable increases in parasympathetic activity. Perhaps you might notice the full weight of your body right now, the way gravity holds you against the surface beneath you. Not pressing, not pulling, just holding, the way the earth holds everything, with a patience that never runs out, with a grip that never tightens, just enough to keep you here, just enough to let you rest. Closed eyes shift the brain toward internal awareness. When you close your eyes, you remove roughly 80% of the sensory input your brain normally processes. The visual cortex, which consumes an enormous amount of metabolic energy, begins to quiet. The brain shifts from outward scanning to inward sensing. Attention turns from the external world to the internal one. This shift is reflected in brainwave patterns. Within seconds of closing the eyes, the brain begins to produce more alpha waves, the electrical patterns associated with relaxed wakefulness. If the eyes remain closed, and the body continues to settle. These alpha waves gradually give way to theta waves. The patterns associated with the boundary between waking and sleep. Neuroscientists at the National Institutes of Health have mapped this transition in detail, showing that eye closure is one of the most reliable triggers for the brain's shift from externally oriented processing to internally oriented, parasympathetic dominant states. And so, if your eyes are closed right now, know that you have already done something profound. You have told your brain, in the most direct language possible, that the world outside can wait, that everything worth attending to is already inside, and the brain, hearing this, has begun to turn inward, quietly, willingly, toward rest. Slow, rhythmic movement tells the body it is safe. There is a reason why rocking calms infants, and a reason why it calms adults too. Slow, rhythmic movement activates the vestibular system, which communicates directly with the brainstem and the vagus nerve. The rhythmic input tells the nervous system that the body is being carried, that it does not need to maintain alertness, that it can let go. This principle extends beyond rocking, the gentle sway of a hammock, the rhythm of walking, the rocking of a boat on calm water. All of these produce similar effects. The vestibular system interprets rhythmic motion as a sign that the environment is stable and predictable, and it signals the autonomic nervous system accordingly. Researchers at the University of Geneva found that gentle rocking during sleep not only helped participants fall asleep faster, but also increased the proportion of deep, slow-wave sleep and improved memory consolidation overnight. It is as if your body remembers being held, not by a person, necessarily, but by the world itself, by the gentle, oscillating forces that have rocked every living creature since the oceans first began to move. And in that memory, there is a kind of permission, a deep, pre-verbal knowing that says you are being carried. You do not need to carry yourself. Your body recognizes safety in the absence of demand. One of the most powerful safety signals the nervous system can receive is the absence of expectation. When nothing is required of the body, when there is no task to perform, no problem to solve, no person to impress, the sympathetic system gradually stands down, not because it has been told to, but because there is nothing for it to do. This is why vacations often take a day or two to feel restful. The body needs time to believe that the demands have truly stopped. It is why the first night in a new place is often difficult for sleep. The nervous system is still scanning, still evaluating, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. Researchers at the University of Maastricht in the Netherlands have studied the phenomenon of psychological detachment from work, showing that the ability to fully disengage from demands is one of the strongest predictors of recovery. Sleep quality and parasympathetic activation during evening hours. Perhaps you might notice, right now, that there is nothing being asked of you, no question to answer, no decision to make, no action to take, just this, just these words, just the quiet company of a voice that expects nothing from you except your presence. And in that nothing, everything your body needs is already happening. Familiar environments activate the parasympathetic system more quickly. Your nervous system keeps a map of the places it has been. When you return to a familiar environment, one where you have previously been safe, the nervous system recognizes it and shifts toward parasympathetic dominance more quickly than it would in a novel setting. This is why people sleep better in their own beds, why they feel calmer in rooms they know, why the concept of home carries such deep biological significance. The nervous system does not just remember places intellectually, it remembers them somatically, in the patterns of muscle tension, breathing rhythm, and autonomic tone that it associates with each location. Researchers at Brown University identified what they call the first night effect, showing that the brain remains partially vigilant during sleep in unfamiliar environments, with one hemisphere remaining more active than the other, a pattern similar to how dolphins and birds sleep when they need to stay alert. And so the room you are in tonight, whether it is your usual room or somewhere new, is being mapped by your nervous system. Every sound it has heard before, every scent it recognizes, every surface it has rested on, all of it is being compared to an internal atlas of safety. And with each passing minute, the map becomes more complete, the room becomes more familiar, and the body settles a little deeper. Your nervous system uses your breathing rate to estimate danger. The brainstem continuously monitors your breathing rate and uses it as one of many inputs to determine your autonomic state. Fast, shallow breathing is interpreted as a sign of exertion or threat, and the sympathetic system responds accordingly. Slow, deep breathing is interpreted as a sign of safety, and the parasympathetic system is strengthened. This creates a remarkable feedback loop. When you breathe slowly, your nervous system concludes that you must be safe and responds by making you calmer. This increased calm makes your breathing even slower, which further convinces the nervous system that all is well. Researchers at the Institute for Breathing Coordination in New York have described this as respiratory entrainment, the process by which breathing patterns can entrain or synchronize the entire autonomic nervous system toward a state of coherence and rest. Imagine a pendulum that gradually slows. Each swing is a little shorter, a little gentler, a little closer to stillness. Your breathing is that pendulum, and with each slow, easy breath, the nervous system adds another data point to its growing body of evidence that tonight, all is well. Skin-to-skin contact is one of the oldest safety signals in biology. In mammals, skin-to-skin contact between parent and newborn is one of the most powerful triggers of parasympathetic activation. The infant's heart rate stabilizes, breathing becomes more regular, body temperature normalizes, cortisol levels drop, and the vagus nerve, still developing, is gently stimulated by the warmth and pressure of another body. This response does not disappear in adulthood. Physical closeness to a trusted person continues to activate the parasympathetic system throughout life. The mechanisms are the same. The C-tactile afferents, the vagal pathways, the oxytocin release, and the effect is the same. Safety, warmth, calm. Researchers at the Touch Research Institute at the University of Miami have conducted decades of studies on the effects of touch on autonomic function, consistently finding that supportive physical contact reduces cortisol, increases vagal tone, and improves both physical and emotional well-being. Perhaps you might notice your arms right now. Perhaps they are resting at your sides. Perhaps they are folded gently across your chest. And perhaps, in the quiet pressure of your own body against itself, there is a kind of contact, a kind of holding, not from someone else, but from yourself. And that, tonight, is enough. Your nervous system can learn to feel safe in silence. For many people, silence is uncomfortable. In the absence of sound, the mind tends to fill the space with thoughts, worries, plans, and ruminations. The nervous system, deprived of external input, may interpret the silence as uncertainty, and uncertainty can feel like threat. But with practice, the nervous system can learn to associate silence with safety. This is one of the core principles of contemplative practices like meditation and mindfulness. By repeatedly sitting in silence without anything bad happening, the nervous system gradually updates its model of the world. Silence shifts from being a void to being a refuge. Researchers at the University of Oregon have shown that experienced meditators display higher parasympathetic tone during periods of silence compared to novices, suggesting that the nervous system's response to silence is not fixed but trainable. And so, if there are pauses between these words, small moments of quiet where nothing is said, your nervous system is doing something with those pauses. It is testing them, tasting them, and finding, perhaps, that they are not empty at all, that they are full of something soft, something that does not need to be named, something that simply is. Your body recognizes safety through the quality of light, not just its brightness. It is not only how much light there is, but what kind of light. Warm, amber-toned light, the kind produced by candles, sunset, or low-wattage incandescent bulbs, signals the nervous system that the day is ending. Cool, blue-enriched light signals that it is daytime, or that a screen is demanding attention. This distinction matters because the melanopsin receptors in your retina are most sensitive to blue wavelengths. When these receptors are activated, they suppress melatonin production and increase sympathetic tone. When they are not activated, as in warm or dim environments, the parasympathetic system gains dominance. Researchers at the University of Oxford and the University of Manchester have studied the spectral sensitivity of these receptors in detail, demonstrating that even small changes in the color temperature of evening light can significantly affect autonomic balance and sleep onset latency. Imagine the way a room feels by candlelight. The edges soften, the shadows deepen, everything seems warmer, closer, more intimate. This is not just an aesthetic experience. It is a biological one. Your nervous system is reading the color of the light and deciding, based on millions of years of evolution, that amber means evening. Evening means rest. Rest means safe. Your body scans for threat even when you are asleep. Sleep is not unconsciousness. Even during the deepest stages of sleep, the brain continues to process auditory information, filtering it through a threat detection system that operates below the level of awareness. This is why a parent can sleep through traffic noise, but wake instantly at the sound of a child's cry. The brain is not ignoring the environment. It is selectively monitoring it. This monitoring is handled primarily by the thalamus, which acts as a gatekeeper between the sensory world and the cortex. During sleep, the thalamus filters out predictable, repetitive sounds and only allows through those that carry potential significance. Researchers at the École Normale Supérieure in Paris demonstrated this by playing spoken names to sleeping participants. The participants' brains responded more strongly to their own names than to unfamiliar names, even in deep sleep, showing that the filtering system is remarkably selective. Perhaps you might notice the sounds around you right now. the hum of a machine, the distant murmur of the world outside. None of it is a threat. Your nervous system has already decided this. And so the sounds remain where they are, outside the boundary of attention, outside the circle of concern, just part of the night, just part of being safe. Your muscles have their own way of recognizing safety. Inside every muscle in your body, there are tiny sensory organs called muscle spindles. These spindles detect the degree of stretch in the muscle and send this information to the spinal cord and brain. When a muscle is tense, the spindles report high tone. When a muscle relaxes, the spindles report low tone. This information feeds directly into the autonomic nervous system. High muscle tone across the body is interpreted as a sign of readiness or threat. Low muscle tone is interpreted as safety. This is why progressive muscle relaxation, the practice of deliberately tensing and then releasing muscle groups, can be so effective at inducing parasympathetic dominance. By changing the input from the spindles, you change the nervous system's assessment of the situation. Researchers at the University of Würzburg in Germany have shown that progressive muscle relaxation produces measurable increases in parasympathetic activity and decreases in cortisol, with effects that accumulate over repeated sessions. Perhaps you might notice the muscles of your legs right now, the thighs, the calves, the small muscles of the feet. Are they holding anything, or have they already let go? And if they have let go, then your body is telling your brain, through 1,000 tiny sensors, that there is nothing to brace for, nothing to run from, nowhere to go but here. The absence of pain is a safety signal in itself. Your nociceptors, the nerve endings that detect potentially damaging stimuli, are constantly active, monitoring the body for signs of injury or inflammation. When they detect nothing unusual, this absence of alarm signals is itself a form of information. It tells the brain that the body is intact, undamaged, and safe. This is called the somatosensory quiet, and it is one of the conditions that allows the parasympathetic system to dominate. As long as the body is not in pain, as long as no tissue damage is being reported, the nervous system can afford to stand down from high alert and invest its resources in rest and repair. Pain researchers at the University of Pittsburgh have described this dynamic, showing that chronic pain disrupts parasympathetic function, while pain relief, even temporary, allows vagal tone to recover. And so, if your body is comfortable right now, if there is no sharp edge, no ache demanding attention, no discomfort pulling you out of this moment, that absence is not nothing. It is everything. It is the foundation upon which rest is built, and your nervous system is resting on it right now. The way a boat rests on still water, held, supported, at ease. Slow, predictable speech patterns signal safety. The prosody of speech, its rhythm, pitch, and pace, is processed by the brain as an emotional signal before the meaning of the words is decoded. When speech is slow, rhythmic, and predictable, it activates the ventral vagal pathway, signaling to the nervous system that the speaker is calm and therefore the environment is likely safe. This is why bedtime stories work. It is why guided meditations are spoken in a particular way. It is why the tone of voice used by hospice workers, by therapists, by anyone who understands the language of the nervous system, tends to be low, slow, and steady. Researchers at the University of Maryland have studied the neural processing of prosody and found that the right hemisphere of the brain is particularly attuned to the emotional qualities of speech, processing tone and rhythm separately from linguistic content. And so these words, however they reach you, carry more than their meaning. They carry a rhythm, a pace, a kind of music that your nervous system has been listening to since the very first voice you ever heard. And that music says nothing has changed. Nothing is wrong. The next word will come at the same pace as the last. And the one after that. And the one after that. Your body recognizes the safety of being horizontal. When your body shifts from vertical to horizontal, the baroreceptors in your carotid arteries and aortic arch detect the change in blood pressure distribution. In an upright position, the heart must work harder against gravity to push blood to the brain. In a horizontal position, this effort decreases significantly. The baroreceptors register the reduction in cardiac workload and signal the brainstem to increase parasympathetic output. This is why lying down feels so immediately soothing. Even before you close your eyes or adjust your position, the simple act of becoming horizontal triggers a physiological cascade that moves the entire body toward rest. Researchers at the University of Sydney have quantified this effect, showing that the transition from standing to supine produces a significant increase in heart rate variability within the first 60 seconds. One of the fastest autonomic shifts measurable in everyday life. And right now, if you are lying down, your baroreceptors are quietly doing their work, measuring, reporting, telling your brain that the body is no longer fighting gravity, that the heart can ease its effort, that the blood can flow freely, without resistance. To every corner of your being, your body uses temperature to mark the boundary between waking and sleep. As bedtime approaches, the body's core temperature begins to drop, typically by about 1 to 1.5 degrees over the course of the evening. This decline is driven by the circadian clock and facilitated by the parasympathetic system, which dilates peripheral blood vessels to release heat from the skin. This core cooling is not incidental. It is a necessary precondition for sleep. The drop in temperature signals the brain's sleep centers that the body is ready for rest. If core temperature remains elevated, sleep onset is delayed. Researchers at the Netherlands Institute for Neuroscience have demonstrated that subtle manipulations of skin temperature can significantly affect sleep onset latency. Warming the skin of the hands and feet by less than 1 degree accelerated sleep onset by an average of 25%. Perhaps you might notice a gentle warmth at the surface of your skin right now. Perhaps your hands feel warmer than usual. Or your feet. This is not random. This is your body releasing heat, opening the gates, preparing the way. It is the parasympathetic system doing what it does every night, cooling the core, warming the edges, drawing the curtains between you and the waking world. Your nervous system uses the predictability of a narrative to feel safe. When you listen to a story, your brain enters a state that neuroscientists call neural coupling. The patterns of activity in the listener's brain begin to mirror those of the speaker. And when the story is calm, rhythmic, and predictable, the listener's autonomic state begins to mirror the story's tone as well. This is why storytelling has been used across every culture and every era as a tool for soothing, for teaching, and for guiding people towards sleep. The narrative provides a structure that the brain can follow without effort. It creates a path through time that is predictable enough to be safe, but interesting enough to hold attention gently. Researchers at Princeton University have mapped neural coupling in real time using functional brain imaging, showing that the degree of coupling between speaker and listener is directly correlated with comprehension, engagement, and emotional synchronization. And so, right now, as you follow these words, your brain is not working hard. It is following gently, the way a leaf follows a stream, not choosing the direction, not fighting the current, just moving slowly toward wherever the water goes. Your body recognizes safety through the rhythm of your own heartbeat. The heart does not beat at a perfectly regular interval. There are subtle variations between each beat. A few milliseconds longer here, a few shorter there. This variability, as we have discussed, is called heart rate variability, and it is a direct reflection of the ongoing conversation between the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. But the brain also uses this rhythm as a source of information about internal safety. When heart rate variability is high, the brain interprets it as a sign of autonomic flexibility, the ability to adapt and respond to changing conditions. This flexibility is associated with feelings of calm, emotional stability, and resilience. Researchers at the HeartMath Institute in California have developed biofeedback protocols based on this principle, showing that when people learn to increase their heart rate variability through slow breathing and positive emotional focus, they experience significant improvements in stress resilience, sleep quality, and overall well-being. And so your heartbeat is not just a mechanical function, it is a conversation, a dialogue between two branches of your nervous system, negotiating, moment by moment, the balance between readiness and rest. And tonight, that conversation is leaning toward rest, beat by beat, gently, inevitably, like a tide that knows only one direction. Your body recognizes the safety of exhalation. Of all the phases of the breathing cycle, exhalation is the one most closely associated with parasympathetic activation. During inhalation, the heart speeds up slightly, driven by sympathetic input. During exhalation, the heart slows, driven by vagal input. This is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, and it is one of the most fundamental rhythms of the human body. By paying attention to the exhalation, or by gently extending it, you amplify the parasympathetic phase of each breath. This is the physiological basis for many relaxation techniques, from the 4-7-8 breathing method to the simple instruction to breathe out slowly. Researchers at the University of Pisa in Italy have measured respiratory sinus arrhythmia with precision, showing that it is one of the most sensitive indicators of vagal tone and that it increases reliably during slow exhalation, emphasized breathing. Perhaps you might notice your next exhalation, not the one after that, just this one, the way the air leaves your body, not pushed, not hurried, just released, like a hand opening, like a door that was never locked. And in that release, something quiets, something settles, something comes home. The feeling of being held is a parasympathetic trigger. Weighted blankets, swaddling, tight hugs, the sensation of being gently compressed. All of these activate a response called deep pressure stimulation. This pressure is detected by mechanoreceptors in the skin and fascia, which send signals through the spinal cord to the brainstem, where they activate parasympathetic pathways. The result is a decrease in cortisol, an increase in serotonin and melatonin, and a measurable shift toward parasympathetic dominance. This is why weighted blankets have become popular sleep aids, and why many people instinctively wrap themselves tightly in blankets before sleep. Researchers at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden conducted controlled studies on deep pressure stimulation and found that it produced significant improvements in sleep quality, reductions in anxiety, and increases in feelings of safety and calm. It is as if the body has a memory of being held, a memory that predates language, predates thought, predates everything except the most basic experience of being alive. And when the body feels that pressure again, gentle, even, and sustained, it remembers, not with the mind, but with something deeper, something that says, I am enclosed, I am contained, I am safe. Safety is not the absence of danger, it is the presence of connection. And so we arrive at the deepest truth about how the body recognizes safety. It is not simply the absence of threat. It is the presence of something positive, the warmth of a familiar room, the rhythm of a trusted voice, the weight of a blanket, the slow, steady beat of your own heart. Stephen Porges has argued that the nervous system's definition of safety is fundamentally social. We feel safest not when we are alone and undetected, but when we are in the presence of someone or something that signals care. A voice, a touch, a gaze, a story told in the dark. Researchers at the University of Virginia have demonstrated this beautifully, showing that holding the hand of a trusted person reduces the brain's threat response more effectively than any cognitive strategy tested. The hand did not change the situation. It changed the nervous system's interpretation of the situation. And so, if you are listening to these words, you are not alone. There is a voice here, keeping you company. It does not know your name. It does not know your story, but it is here, all the same, steady and unhurried, saying, in the only way it can, you are safe, you are accompanied, and you can rest. Let that be the last thing you hear before this cluster ends. That safety is not something you find. It is something that finds you. When the conditions are right, when the body is ready, when the night is soft enough to hold you, settling is not something you do. It is something that happens when you stop doing. There is a moment, just before sleep, when the body crosses a threshold. The muscles release their last holding. The breath drops into a rhythm that requires no thought. The mind, which has been following these words like a path through a forest, begins to wander off the path and into the trees. This moment cannot be forced. It cannot be scheduled. It arrives on its own, like dusk, like the first star appearing in an evening sky. All you can do is create the conditions, and then wait. Neurologists at the University of Freiburg in Germany have studied this transition using high-density electroencephalography, capturing the exact moment when the brain shifts from waking to sleeping. They found that the transition is not a single event but a gradual process, a slow dissolution of waking networks, one by one, like candles being extinguished in a long hallway. And perhaps that is what is happening now. Perhaps, without your knowing, a few candles have already gone out. A few hallways have already gone dark, and the rest will follow, gently, in their own time, not because you told them to, but because that is what candles do when the night is long enough. your brain waves change as you approach sleep. In waking life, your brain produces fast, irregular electrical patterns called beta waves. These are the patterns of active thinking, problem solving, and engagement with the external world. As the body relaxes and the eyes close, these beta waves give way to alpha waves, slower and more rhythmic, the patterns of calm wakefulness. As sleep approaches, to alpha waves yield to theta waves, even slower, even more rhythmic. Theta waves are the signature of the hypnagogic state, the drowsy borderland between waking and sleeping. This is where thoughts become images, where logic dissolves into dream logic, where the mind, freed from the obligation to make sense, begins to simply float. Sleep researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison have mapped these transitions with extraordinary precision, showing that the shift from alpha to theta typically occurs within 10 to 20 minutes of lying down in a quiet, dark environment. Perhaps you might notice your thoughts right now, not directing them, just noticing. Are they still sharp and clear? Or have they begun to soften at the edges, to drift? Just slightly, from one subject to another, without quite connecting. If so, that is theta. That is the doorway, and you are already standing in it. Your body releases tension in waves, not all at once. As the parasympathetic system deepens its hold, muscle tension does not disappear uniformly. It releases in waves. First, the large muscles of the legs and arms, then the muscles of the torso, then the smaller muscles of the hands and feet, and finally, the delicate muscles of the face, the jaw, the eyes, the forehead. Each wave is accompanied by a subtle shift in autonomic tone, a small step deeper into parasympathetic dominance. Clinicians who practice body scan meditation have long observed this sequential release, and sleep researchers have confirmed it using electromyography, which measures electrical activity in the muscles. Researchers at the University of Salzburg in Austria found that the pattern of muscular release during sleep onset follows a consistent head-to-toe gradient, with the most distal muscles, the fingers and toes, being among the last to fully relax. Perhaps you might notice where your body is still holding, just slightly. Perhaps the space between the eyebrows, perhaps the root of the tongue, perhaps the small muscles at the base of the thumb, and perhaps, as you notice them, they begin to soften, not because you told them to, but because attention, gentle and without demand, is itself a kind of permission. The body's repair systems peak during deep sleep. In the deepest stages of sleep, known as slow wave sleep, the body enters its most intensive period of repair. Growth hormone is released from the pituitary gland, stimulating tissue growth and muscle repair. Protein synthesis increases. Cellular waste is cleared. The immune system produces more cytokines, the signaling molecules that coordinate the body's defense and healing responses. This is why sleep deprivation has such profound effects on health. Without adequate slow-wave sleep, the body cannot complete its nightly maintenance. Wounds heal more slowly. Infections take longer to resolve. Cognitive function declines. Researchers at the University of Chicago demonstrated this dramatically, showing that participants who were deprived of slow-wave sleep for even a few nights showed measurable declines in immune function, glucose, metabolism, and growth hormone secretion. And so, the rest you are moving toward tonight is not passive. It is not empty. It is the most productive state your body can enter. A factory of healing that operates only in the dark, only in the quiet, only when you are brave enough to do nothing at all. Your brain sorts memories while you drift. As you move from wakefulness toward sleep, the hippocampus begins a remarkable process. It replays the day's experiences in compressed form, sending them to the neocortex for long-term storage. This process, called memory consolidation, is one of the primary functions of sleep, and it happens most actively during the transition from waking to sleeping and during slow-wave sleep. What is remarkable is that the brain does not store everything. It selects. It prioritizes experiences that are emotionally significant, novel, or relevant to existing knowledge. The rest is gently discarded, like leaves swept from a path. Researchers at the University of Tübingen in Germany have shown that sleep-dependent memory consolidation is not random but strategic, preferentially strengthening memories that are likely to be useful in the future. And so, as your mind drifts, it is doing more than wandering. It is sorting, filing, deciding what to keep and what to release. And you do not need to help it. You do not need to hold on to anything. The things that matter will be kept. The things that do not will dissolve, quietly, like morning mist, leaving only what is essential behind. The body has a natural settling rhythm that takes about 20 minutes. Sleep researchers have found that, under optimal conditions, the average adult takes between 10 and 20 minutes to fall asleep. This period, called sleep onset latency, is not a flaw. It is a feature. It is the time the body needs to complete its transition from waking to sleeping, to run through its checklist of parasympathetic preparations, and to ensure that the environment is truly safe. If you fall asleep in less than 5 minutes, it often indicates sleep deprivation rather than efficient sleep. And if it takes longer than 30 minutes, it may indicate autonomic dysregulation or environmental disruption. The sweet spot, the 20-minute window, is where the body does its best work of settling. Researchers at the Stanford Sleep Epidemiology Research Center have documented this consistently, showing that sleep onset latency is one of the most reliable indicators of overall sleep health. And so, wherever you are in that window right now, know that you are on time, that the body has its own schedule, its own pace, its own gentle itinerary for the journey from here to sleep. There is no delay. There is no hurry. There is only the quiet, unhurried work of a body that knows exactly how long it needs. Your breathing and heartbeat synchronize as you fall asleep. In waking life, your breathing and heart rate operate somewhat independently. But as you approach sleep, something beautiful happens. They begin to synchronize. The heart slows during exhalation and quickens during inhalation in an increasingly regular pattern. The breath becomes slower, deeper, and more rhythmic, and the two systems, which spent the day operating at different tempos, gradually find a shared rhythm. This phenomenon, called cardio-respiratory coupling, is a hallmark of healthy sleep onset. It indicates that the parasympathetic system has achieved a level of dominance sufficient to coordinate the body's two most vital rhythms into a single, coherent pattern. Researchers at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center at Harvard have developed methods to measure cardio-respiratory coupling during sleep. showing that it is one of the strongest predictors of subjective sleep quality and next-day cognitive performance. Imagine two musicians who have been playing different pieces all day. And now, as the evening deepens, they begin to play the same melody. Not because anyone told them to, but because the music itself brought them together. Your heart and your lungs are those musicians, and the melody they are finding right now is the oldest lullaby there is. Your body produces melatonin as a signal that night has arrived. Melatonin is not a sleeping pill. It is a signal produced by the pineal gland in response to darkness. Melatonin tells the body that night has come and that the transition towards sleep can begin. It lowers core body temperature. It reduces alertness. It shifts the autonomic balance further toward parasympathetic dominance. But it does not force sleep. It simply opens the window. Melatonin production begins to rise in the early evening, typically 2 to 3 hours before habitual sleep time, and reaches its peak in the middle of the night. This timing is controlled by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master clock, which tracks the light-dark cycle through signals from the retina. Researchers at the Monash University in Australia have mapped the melatonin profile in exquisite detail, showing that it is one of the most reliable circadian biomarkers, and that its timing and amplitude are closely linked to sleep quality. And right now, as the night deepens around you, melatonin is flowing through your bloodstream, not forcing anything, not demanding anything, just whispering to every cell in your body, the day is done, the light has gone, it is time to rest. Your eyes make slow, rolling movements just before sleep. As you transition from wakefulness to the first stage of sleep, your eyes, behind closed lids, begin to make slow, rolling movements. These are not the rapid, darting movements of REM sleep. They are gentle, languid arcs, as if the eyes are slowly scanning a darkened room that does not exist. These slow eye movements, sometimes called SEMs, are one of the most reliable physiological markers of the onset of drowsiness. They are controlled by brainstem circuits that are closely linked to the parasympathetic system, and they signal that the visual cortex is beginning to disengage from the external world. Sleep researchers at the University of Montreal have used electrooculography to study these movements in detail, showing that they typically appear within the first few minutes of lying down with eyes closed, and that their presence correlates strongly with the subjective experience of drowsiness. Perhaps, right now, behind your closed lids, your eyes are beginning that gentle drift, not looking for anything, not tracking anything, just moving, slowly, like clouds crossing a quiet sky. And in that movement, something is being released. The last threads of visual attention, the last remnants of the waking gaze, until all that remains is the dark, and the dark is enough. The parasympathetic system deepens in cycles throughout the night. Sleep is not a uniform state. It cycles through stages, from light sleep to deep slow wave sleep to REM sleep, in approximately 90-minute cycles. And with each cycle, the parasympathetic system's influence shifts. It is deepest during slow wave sleep, when the body is most profoundly at rest. It lightens during REM sleep, when the brain becomes more active and dreams unfold. This cycling is not a glitch. It is by design. The alternation between deep rest and dream states allows the body to accomplish different types of maintenance at different times. Physical repair during slow-wave sleep, emotional processing and memory integration during REM sleep. Researchers at the University of Surrey in England have mapped the autonomic profile of each sleep stage with precision, showing that the parasympathetic system follows a predictable arc through each cycle, rising and falling like a gentle wave. And so the rest that awaits you tonight is not a single, flat expanse. It is a landscape with valleys of deep silence and ridges of quiet dreaming. And through all of it, the parasympathetic system will be there, rising and falling with you, holding the rhythm, keeping you safe through every stage of the night. Dreams may be the parasympathetic system's way of processing emotion. During REM sleep, the brain is almost as active as it is during waking life. But there is one crucial difference. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic, planning, and self-control, is significantly less active. This creates a unique neurological environment in which emotions can be experienced and processed without the usual cognitive filters. Matthew Walker, a neuroscientist at the University of California, Berkeley, has proposed that REM sleep functions as a kind of overnight therapy, allowing the brain to revisit emotionally charged memories in a neurochemically safe environment. During REM sleep, norepinephrine, the brain's stress chemical, is at its lowest level, which means that emotional memories can be replayed without triggering the stress response. This is why dreams often feel intense but rarely feel truly threatening. The emotional content is real, but the alarm system has been turned down. The body is still, the muscles are paralyzed, and the parasympathetic system holds the space, keeping the body calm while the mind does its quiet, necessary work. Your body knows how to fall asleep. You do not need to teach it. Every night, without instruction, without planning, without conscious effort, your body navigates the transition from waking to sleeping. It dims the lights of consciousness. It slows the engines. It lowers the drawbridges and opens the gates. And it does all of this with a precision and reliability that no technology has ever matched. This is not a skill you acquired. It is built into the architecture of your nervous system, encoded in the same DNA that tells your heart how to beat and your lungs how to breathe. Sleep is not something you do. It is something your body does for you, the same way it digests food, fights infection, and heals wounds. Sleep scientist Nathaniel Kleitman, one of the founders of modern sleep research, spent decades studying this process and concluded that sleep is the default state of the organism, and that wakefulness is what requires effort, not the other way around. Perhaps you might let that thought settle. That sleep is not something you achieve. It is something you return to, like water returning to the sea, like a bird returning to its nest, like a breath returning to stillness after the last word has been spoken. Your parasympathetic system works more efficiently when you trust it. This may sound unscientific, but it is supported by research. When people believe that their body is capable of relaxing, when they trust the process of falling asleep rather than anxiously monitoring it, their parasympathetic response is stronger. Cortisol levels are lower. Sleep onset is faster. Sleep quality is higher. This phenomenon has been studied under the umbrella of sleep effort. The paradoxical finding that trying harder to sleep makes it more difficult. Researchers at the University of Glasgow have shown that individuals with high sleep effort, meaning those who actively try to control or force sleep, exhibit lower parasympathetic tone at bedtime compared to those who approach sleep with a passive, accepting attitude. It is a gentle irony. The less you try, the more your body can do. The less you grip, the more your hands can hold. And the less you worry about sleep, the sooner it arrives. Perhaps you might notice your hands right now. Perhaps they are open. Perhaps the fingers are loose. Perhaps they are not holding anything at all. And in that emptiness, there is space. Space for the body to do what it has always known how to do. Without your help, without your worry, without your permission. The parasympathetic system responds to gratitude. Studies have shown that the experience of gratitude, the quiet recognition of something good in one's life, produces measurable shifts in autonomic function. Heart rate variability increases. Cortisol decreases. The prefrontal cortex, which is associated with positive emotional processing, becomes more active, and the amygdala, which is associated with threat detection, becomes less so. Researchers at the HeartMath Institute found that focusing on feelings of appreciation for just 5 minutes produced significant increases in parasympathetic tone that persisted for up to 6 hours. They described gratitude as one of the most efficient tools for shifting autonomic balance toward rest. It is a striking finding that one of the most powerful things you can do for your nervous system is also one of the simplest, not a technique, not a discipline, just the quiet, private act of noticing something good, a warm bed, a safe room, a body that is still breathing, a night that asks nothing of you. And if you can hold that feeling, even for a moment, your body will respond, not because you commanded it, but because gratitude and calm are, in the language of the nervous system, the same word. Your body temperature continues to drop as you enter deep sleep. As you pass through the lighter stages of sleep and enter slow-wave sleep, your core temperature drops further, reaching its lowest point of the 24-hour cycle. This nadir typically occurs in the early hours of the morning, around 3 to 4 in the morning, and it signals that the body is in its deepest state of rest. This temperature drop is not passive. It is actively maintained by the parasympathetic system, which continues to dilate peripheral blood vessels and release heat from the skin. The cooler core temperature reduces metabolic demand, slows cellular processes, and creates the optimal biochemical environment for repair and restoration. Researchers at the Chronobiology Group at the University of Basel have shown that the amplitude of this nocturnal temperature dip is one of the strongest correlates of sleep depth and restorative quality. And right now, your body is already beginning this descent, degree by degree, layer by layer, like a stone sinking through warm water toward the cool, dark floor of a deep and quiet lake. Your muscles become temporarily paralyzed during dreams. During REM sleep, when the most vivid dreams occur, the brainstem sends signals through the spinal cord that temporarily inhibit voluntary muscle movement. This phenomenon, called REM atonia, prevents you from physically acting out your dreams. It is a safety mechanism, as ancient as dreaming itself, that keeps the body still while the mind wanders. The paralysis is almost complete. Only the diaphragm, which must continue to move for breathing, and the extraocular muscles, which control eye movement, are spared. Everything else, arms, legs, torso, face, is held in a gentle, chemical stillness. Researchers at the University of Toronto identified the specific neural pathways responsible for REM atonia, showing that they involve glycine and gamma-aminobutyric acid receptors in the spinal cord that effectively switch off motor output during dream sleep. It is a remarkable act of trust. Every night, your body willingly surrenders its ability to move, trusting that the world outside is safe enough to remain still in. And every night, the parasympathetic system holds that trust, keeping the body calm and protected while the mind travels wherever it needs to go. The longest nerve in your body is also the gentlest. We have spoken about the vagus nerve throughout this journey, but it is worth saying once more, here near the end, that this nerve, the longest cranial nerve in the human body, does not operate through force. It does not shock the heart into slowing. It does not clamp the muscles into relaxation. It does not flood the brain with chemicals. It whispers. It suggests. It nudges. It creates the conditions for calm, and then it steps back and lets the body do the rest. Every signal it sends is an invitation, not a command, and every organ that responds does so because it trusts the messenger. This is, perhaps, the most beautiful thing about the parasympathetic system, that the most powerful calming force in your body is also the most gentle, that the nerve responsible for your deepest rest does its work not through dominance, but through tenderness. Perhaps you might notice the tenderness in your own body right now, the softness of your breath, the warmth of your skin, the quiet weight of your eyelids, all of it tended by a nerve that does not know how to be anything other than gentle. Sleep is the body's way of saying the day was enough. Every night, your body makes a decision. It decides that the day is complete, that whatever was accomplished is sufficient, that whatever was left undone can wait. And it begins the process of shutting down the waking systems and activating the sleeping ones. This decision is not made by the conscious mind. It is made by the circadian clock, the homeostatic sleep drive, and the parasympathetic nervous system, working together in a coordination so seamless that you rarely notice it happening. Sleep researcher Alexander Borbely at the University of Zurich described this as the two-process model of sleep regulation, in which the circadian rhythm and the homeostatic sleep pressure converge to produce the irresistible drive toward sleep that arrives each evening. And so, whatever your day held, whether it was productive or aimless, joyful or difficult, full of purpose or full of waiting, your body has decided it was enough. The day is done, and the night, with all its quiet repair, is here to receive whatever you bring to it, all of it, exactly as it is. Your immune system is most active while you sleep. During sleep, particularly during slow-wave sleep, the immune system enters a state of heightened activity, natural killer cells, which are responsible for detecting and destroying virus-infected cells and tumor cells, increase their activity. Cytokines that promote sleep and fight infection are released in greater quantities, and the adaptive immune system, which creates targeted responses to specific pathogens, consolidates its memories, much the way the brain consolidates cognitive memories. Researchers at the University of Tübingen in Germany found that just one night of sleep deprivation reduced natural killer cell activity by as much as 70%. highlighting how dependent the immune system is on parasympathetic dominant sleep states. And so, as you lie here, your immune system is not resting. It is working, patrolling, remembering, building defenses that will serve you tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, all while you do nothing at all, all while you simply sleep. The parasympathetic system keeps working even when you forget it exists. You do not need to think about your vagus nerve for it to function. You do not need to understand acetylcholine for it to slow your heart. You do not need to know what peristalsis means for your gut to move food through your body. The parasympathetic system operates entirely without your knowledge or consent, and it does so with a reliability that borders on the miraculous. This is, perhaps, the most reassuring fact of all, that the system responsible for your rest, your repair, your calm, and your healing has never once required your attention. It has been running since before you were born. It will continue running after you fall asleep tonight, and it will be there when you wake, still working, still adjusting, still keeping everything in balance. Perhaps you might notice that you do not need to hold on to these facts, that you do not need to remember any of them, that the knowing is not the point. The point is the listening, the settling, the slow, imperceptible drift toward a place where facts dissolve and only feeling remains. Your body heals fastest in the first half of the night, the first few hours of sleep, when slow-wave sleep is most abundant, are the body's prime repair window. Growth hormone secretion peaks. Tissue repair accelerates. Bone marrow produces more red blood cells. The liver completes its most intensive detoxification cycles, and the brain's glymphatic system operates at maximum capacity, clearing the metabolic waste that accumulated during the day. Sleep scientists at the National Sleep Foundation have emphasized that this early sleep window is irreplaceable. Sleeping later in the morning cannot compensate for missing the first few hours of night. The body's repair schedule is tied to the circadian clock, not to total sleep time. And so, by lying here now, by allowing sleep to come at its natural time, you are giving your body access to its most powerful healing window, not because you planned it, but because the body's clock, the same clock that dims your eyes and warms your hands and slows your heart, knew exactly when to begin. The feeling of drowsiness is a gift, not a burden. In our drowsiness is often treated as an inconvenience, something to fight off with caffeine and willpower. But from a biological perspective, drowsiness is a signal of remarkable sophistication. It is the body's way of telling you that all the conditions for rest have been met, that the parasympathetic system is dominant, that melatonin is flowing, that the core temperature has dropped, that the muscles are soft and the mind is quiet. Drowsiness is not weakness. It is readiness. It is the body standing at the threshold of sleep, hand on the door, waiting for you to stop resisting and simply walk through. Researchers at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research have studied drowsiness as a biomarker of sleep readiness, showing that the subjective feeling of sleepiness correlates almost perfectly with the physiological state of parasympathetic dominance. Perhaps you might notice the heaviness now, in your eyelids, in your limbs, in the space behind your thoughts, and perhaps, instead of fighting it, you might let it be what it is, a gift, a gentle hand on your shoulder, saying the work is done, the door is open, come. Each breath you take while resting is a small act of restoration. Every inhalation brings oxygen to the blood. Every exhalation removes carbon dioxide. But during rest, this exchange becomes more efficient. The breathing muscles relax. The airways open. The gas exchange in the lungs improves. And with each breath, the blood that reaches your tissues is richer, cleaner, more capable of supporting the repair work that the parasympathetic system has set in motion. Researchers at the University of Pittsburgh have shown that respiratory efficiency increases significantly during parasympathetic dominant states, allowing the body to extract more oxygen per breath while expending less energy on the mechanics of breathing. And so each breath you take right now, each slow, easy, unhurried breath, is not just keeping you alive, it is actively healing you, one breath at a time, one molecule at a time, a restoration so small and so continuous that you will never notice it happening. But your body will. Your body always does. Your body will continue this work long after these words end. When this voice falls silent, when the last fact has been spoken and the last sentence has faded, the parasympathetic system will not stop. It will continue to slow your heart, continue to deepen your breath, continue to warm your hands and soften your muscles and clear the waste from your brain. It will carry you through the first cycle of sleep and the second and the third. It will hold your heart in its gentle rhythm through every hour of the night. And when morning comes and the sympathetic system begins to wake you, the parasympathetic system will step back just as gently as it stepped forward and wait, patient as ever, ready for the next night, ready for you. Because that is what it does. That is what it has always done. Not for reward, not for recognition, but simply because you are alive. And being alive means being cared for by a system that never sleeps. So that you can. You were designed for rest. And so we arrive at the last fact. The simplest one. The one that holds all the others inside it. You were designed for this. Not just for waking. Not just for working. Not just for thinking and planning and doing and solving. But for this. For lying still. For breathing slowly. For letting the body do what the body knows how to do. Rest is not a luxury. It is not a reward for productivity. It is not something you earn. It is something you are. A resting creature. A sleeping creature. A being whose body was built from the very first cell, with the capacity to slow down, to soften, to heal, and to dream. And tonight, you do not need to be anything other than what you are. A body, breathing, a mind, drifting, a heart, beating, a nervous system, settling into the rhythm it has known since the beginning of time. That is enough. It has always been enough. And so we come to the end of our time together tonight. 100 small facts. 100 quiet windows into the machinery that keeps you safe. And through all of them, one truth. Repeated in 100 different ways, your body already knows how to rest. It has always known. The parasympathetic nervous system, that quiet river running beneath every heartbeat, every breath, every blink. It was there before you were born. It will be there when you wake. And it is here now, in this very moment, doing what it does best, slowing, softening, settling, carrying you, the way a river carries everything, toward the stillest part of itself, You did not need to learn anything tonight. You did not need to fix anything. You simply needed to be here. And you were. So let your shoulders settle. One last time. Let your jaw soften. One last time. Let your breath find its own rhythm. The one it has always known. The one that needs no guidance. No instruction. No permission. And if sleep has not yet come, know that it is on its way. The door is open. The river is flowing. And you, like every living creature that has ever closed its eyes and trusted the dark, are already being carried. Good night, sleepy soul. The river still runs, and it will carry you home.